My name is Sriram, and I head the telecom network services practice globally, which is a part of the global media and telecom business unit, which is one of the 6 business units in Wipro. And our customers are service providers, equipment vendors, and media companies. So we provide IT and telecom services to these companies.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to jump straight into my first question. So how do you see the telecoms and media industry has evolved over the last few years? And what trends do you think will drive the growth of the business in the next few years?
So the last few years have been pretty interesting and exciting, especially in the telecoms domain and in the media domain, because telecom companies or service providers are trying to deliver video content and different types of applications on their traditional networks designed for voice and data. And on the other hand, media companies were traditionally delivering video content and TV content, getting into the space of delivering voice and data services. So the convergence which is happening across these domains is also being driven by the consumption of the customers are doing, because they are now ready to consume anything and everything on any types of network. With the smartphones, the power has transformed to the user now, which is also pushing these two industries into what we call the blurring of industrial boundaries, or some people call it as the neighborhood seep. Right, so the media companies getting into the telecom domain, the telecom companies getting into the media domain, and it's not only there, but today if you see across technologies, whether it is telecom, IT, networks, finance, for example, a lot of telecom companies have started offering financial services. Banking is happening on mobile. So if you see, it's an interesting era of convergence across technologies, across services, across industries, across segments. So that's where I think it's impacting each and every one of us, both whether you are from a business user or a consumer. So both in the B2B as well as in the B2C segments, we are seeing this impact of convergence in our day-to-day life.
Okay, great. And obviously, my next question would be about the ecosystem that we're experiencing at the moment. So the telecoms ecosystem has seen a tremendous shift from being network-centric organizations to a customer-centric organization. How do you think the outsourcing model has evolved for operators and other players in the digital value chain over the last few years? And what are the key drivers for this change across different regions?
It's an interesting question, because I'm happy to hear that people have realized, or what I call becoming consciously incompetent about what are the gaps which they are, or the mindset in which they are operating. Few years ago, all the operators were all what I call the inside-out approach, or the network-centric. Okay, I have this technology, and I have this network, and these are the services I'm going to provide, and that's what you need to consume. That was the approach with which the networks were built. Thanks to the competition in the form of over-the-top players and the internet model hitting the industry, or the service delivery model of internet, now the consumer has got a choice to move away from the network and consume the services which he wants in whichever way or whichever device he wants to consume. So that has put an entire paradigm shift with the service providers. Now they have started talking about I need to protect my consumer market share, which has a direct impact on the revenue market share. So they have also started looking at a customer-centric, okay, from an outside in. Okay, so this is my customer segment, these are the services they are consuming. For delivering these services, these are the networks I need to have, and these are the technologies I need to deploy. So if you see, this is the shift which has happened. And interestingly, it has a good impact, or a positive impact, on the value chain construct of today. Otherwise, it was all pretty much a one-way sort of a traffic, but now it's a bit more bi-directional. And the role each and every stakeholder in the value chain used to play before is changing, has changed, and is changing, and is still evolving. And there is a new value chain construct which is coming in place. And people are trying to shift to the place where they will be able to deliver the maximum value to the customer. So depending, if you see, initially the networks were having the maximum value. Along with that, the equipment vendors were tied closely to the networks. They were ruling the value chain. slowly the impact of or the proliferation of smart devices transferred the entire control to the user, and applications and services on the other hand, which is coming on the internet. So these two started improving or increasing in their value chain, which has actually pushed the equipment vendor and the network guys lower in value. So the value chain is actually reversed, right? So each and everybody is trying to figure out their role in the new value chain to be on top of the value. So if you are a equipment vendor, you are becoming a network operator. If you are a network operator, you are trying to become a service provider or a lifestyle enabler. There are different ways they are trying to identify themselves. It's an interesting era which is happening now. Good thing is the consumer is again the king.
Definitely, indeed. And I mean, how far do you think operators will go in adopting managed services as a concept? I mean, what are the key priorities for an operator, and what do you think in the market today?
Managed services, okay, so people use it interchangeably, managed services and outsourcing. So I just need to clarify these things. So outsourcing is something which is being defined like a service provider or any company is focusing only on the core competencies and giving away the rest of the activities which have to enable or to support to companies who do it the best, right? So that is what we say, okay, take lift, shift and give it to somebody else. That's outsourcing. Managed services is, it's like you know what needs to be done, okay? At the same time, you have the people also to be done. But you engage with the partner in a way where exactly you get the services delivered by them, but actually monitor them on their performance, KPIs, SLAs, which is in line with what you want to deliver. So this is like a managed services. So managed services can result in outsourcing or may not be resulting in outsourcing. So let's understand this difference, okay? Coming back to the how far the service providers will go for outsourcing or managed services. If you see, managed services is actually entering the third phase, if I may say so. The first phase, it started with the emerging markets, high growth markets, where operators were not able to catch up with the market growth because there was a pent-up demand, which was tremendous growth was happening year on year, right? People were actually doubling their subscriber base every year. For that sort of a requirement, they looked at equipment vendors who are the best guys to do their services as well, mainly to address growth. So that was all about coverage and coverage and coverage. If you take about wireless, and wireless was driving the growth for emerging markets. The second phase came, okay, now that we have covered, how do you do capacity? So then if you see, then they went into what they call the managed capacity model. Look, I will pay for what I use. So the managed capacity model came into play, the next level of outsourcing. So now you have coverage, now you have capacity. The third phase now we are all entering is what I call the experience phase. So everybody has deployed network, everybody has got customers. How do you differentiate yourself? How is your managed services provider going to help to achieve that differentiation? So interesting things are happening. Some of the companies have started insourcing some of the key activities because now it is pretty much a steady state phase. So strategic functions are like planning or transformation, all these things are getting insourced. And operations are becoming more and more tighter in terms of, okay, anything and everything we do, it's not network centric. Coming back to your previous question, it's all customer centric. So whatever you do, how does it impact customer user experience, and does it deliver business value? These are the measurements they have started putting in place. Okay, so that is where we are getting into some sort of a different level of managed services, and that is where this new journey has started very recently, and that is in line with the customer-centric approach people want to look at to achieve differentiation predominantly in the market.
I mean, I guess for my next question, I really want to talk a bit about the new kind of technologies and the challenges that are coming with that. So, I mean, with the adoption of next generation technologies like 4G, LTE, managing the networks in the multi-vendor environment is a challenge for operators as well as the equipment vendors. What do you think could be the best approach to overcome this?
Multi-vendor, multi-technology environment has always been there with the operators, and it has all been a natural evolution from legacy to next generation. So most of the operators have been able to do good amount of uh, transformation or transitioning both the networks as well as the people skills in that direction. However, with the new environment in which this convergence is happening, the traditional mindsets is what needs to change. Whether you talk about network construct, or you talk about service delivery, or you talk about managing the networks and operating the networks, right? So if you are looking at it from a network-centric approach, initially that was what it is. Okay, I know this technology, I deploy this equipment, I deploy this network, period. All my network equipments or the networks are all greens. It's all 5 nines. I'm not worried about anything else. But from a service-centric approach, people were having siloed sort of technology pillars. An IP expert or an optical expert or a wireless expert, that's how it is. But today when you go from a customer-centric approach, you need to understand how this service works across all these networks, right? So that is where service providers also are having this challenge to get that end-to-end visibility of any service, whether it is IPTV, whether it is broadband wireless, or whichever way you define the service. People are trying to see how do I do this end-to-end visibility, right? So that is an area where people need to build their skills, and which is not easily available, and not anybody and everybody can scale up to this level. Okay, so once you get into that mode of end-to-end visibility of services, you need to understand what are the underlying processes, how are the systems and processes enabling to deliver that from a fulfillment perspective, and following that from an assurance perspective. So you have the infrastructure layer, you need to build this service layer before you enter into the customer experience domain.
I mean, we've talked a bit about it in a lot of the questions, but can we talk about, what is Wipro, here at the event to promote? What innovations has Wipro as a company really been kind of pushing for the last year?
So Wipro as a company, as I told you, we are not a product company, we are a services company, and we are a solutions company. The way we used to operate before was to get the specifications or the requirements from the customer and deliver it to the best of the possible efficiently and cost effectively. But that is more of a technology approach. But now Wipro has also changed its approach towards the customer and solving clients' issues or problems. So we try to define the business problem for the customer and align our solutions towards solving those business problems. So whether it is technology, whether it is in IT or in networks or in process, so we try to quantify it with a business outcome, right? How does it help you to do your business better, more effectively? Does it have a customer impact? So can we define those KPIs? It's not about whether all your networks are operating at 5 nines, carrier grade, all lights green. From there, we have moved to more about, okay, if I do this, what sort of an impact the customer will get? Can we measure that? So some of our projects, interestingly, we have taken up some targets on net promoter scores. So if I do this change in process, it's going to impact my net promoter score. So with one of the clients, we have got into this model. So we say, okay, we are ready to bet your net promoter scores will move up, and we are betting our outcome, what we call the outcome-based compensation. So we get into those models. So the business models are also changing. So this is how we take the business challenge of the customer, the way we approach. So 2 or 3 things we do from a cost reduction perspective, from a improving experience perspective for the consumer end user. Third thing, how do you identify new additional streams of revenue? So if you see any business scorecard, you do a balanced scorecard, works on these 3 financials, which is capex investments, opex spends, the non-financial, which is customer experience. So we try to address all our offerings in that. So we do consulting, we do engineering, testing, and managed services.